That one time I stayed talking to a guy who didn't show me his FAC. I suppose this is a sort of scary story because of the nature of it. I am aware I was very stupid for this now, but at the time I didn't overanalyze it when I should have. I met this guy on Snapchat during lockdown. He lived about 3 hours away from me and we got talking for about 10 months' time. Let's call him Paul. When Paul first added me, he showed me a picture of what he supposedly looked like. That was fine, all grand and dandy. We kept talking as time went on, like a talking stage kind of thing, I guess. I found out he was a fighter, and a lot of other things about him, as one does when you're talking to someone new. He never sent me a snap of his face, so I started questioning him about it early on. He said he had stitches in his face and he didn't want the first time I seen him to be when his face was all mashed. This guy also had no socials whatsoever, except for seemingly Facebook, because he has a rocky relationship with his dad and that's the app they use to communicate. I could never find his Facebook either. I asked for his number and he gave me 3 wrong numbers, one of which will be important later. The first number he gave me belonged to a guy, let's call him TJ. We kept on talking. Stupid me, I know. He sent me a screenshot one day, and I saw his mother's name in a notification. I took this opportunity to look up her Facebook. I realized that she was referring to TJ as her son. She also has 3 others, 2 of which this guy mentioned, let's call them Jaden and Jack. Jaden and Jack were posted a lot. Along with TJ, they all had posts up for their birthdays. Paul had 0. I knew that Paul lived in the house with them, because I matched other snaps he sent me with pictures from her Facebook, but he was also lying about where he lived. He was saying that he lived about an hour away from where his family and mother actually lived, which in turn would be where he lived because he is living in the same house. Months went on. Paul continued to refuse to show me his face. We got really deep with things, and by this point we were sending special kinds of pictures and videos to each other. He only ever showed me his dick, and never once showed me his face, or even the top of his head. This was all really weird because he had sent me videos of his cousins, referring to him as Paul, and he had mentioned 2 brothers to me. I never confronted him about his mother's Facebook, and I never confronted him about TJ. There was one time late at night when he was sending me a special video, and I swear the camera flipped and I saw TJ. But I knew TJ had a whole girlfriend that he has had for years and still does have, so that confused me too. I think my mind was playing tricks on me at that point, but I mentioned it and he immediately deleted the video, still refusing to send me any picture of his face. He offered to send me photos from scrapbooks, but never one he had saved of himself, which I thought was strange also. There's more that I could add maybe, but I don't want to go into too much detail. I know that Paul is actually Paul and stuff, but I never knew what Paul looked like and I still don't. I have his Snapchat to this day, but never asked or said anything from the minute we stopped talking. I never mentioned how he wasn't posted anywhere or how TJ was on the Facebook and he wasn't. The stranger who saved me without saying a word. About a year ago, I was at one of the lowest points of my life. I had just lost my job, my car had broken down, and I was barely keeping my head above water. One rainy night, I was sitting on a park bench at 2 a.m., soaked, tired, and feeling completely invisible to the world. I wasn't waiting for anyone. I wasn't going anywhere. I just didn't know what else to do. While I sat there, a man in a faded red hoodie walked past. He didn't look at me, didn't slow down, just kept walking. But then a minute later, he came back. He sat down on the other end of the bench quietly, like he didn't want to scare me. For a while, we didn't say a word. Just the sound of the rain hitting the pavement. Then he slowly placed something next to me on the bench. A steaming cup of hot chocolate. No questions. No, are you okay? No judgment. Just the simple, warm gesture of a stranger who didn't owe me anything. Before I could even say thank you, he stood up and walked away. I never saw his face. But something about that moment broke whatever wall I'd built around myself. I cried harder than I ever had before, but it wasn't the same kind of crying. It wasn't hopeless. It felt like someone, somewhere, still saw me. The next morning, I decided to call my sister and ask for help. That phone call led to a new job, a place to stay, and slowly, very slowly getting my life back together. I'll probably never know who that stranger was. But that night, a cup of hot chocolate meant more than any speech or advice ever could. Sometimes, kindness doesn't need words. Am I overreacting for sending my son, 18, to stay with his grandma because of how close he's gotten with my daughter, 14? I feel so weird even writing this, but I really need to know if I'm just being paranoid. I'm using a throwaway not because my family knows about Reddit, but because I genuinely don't know how to explain this without sounding insane or gross. I, 39F, am a single mom. My ex, 41M, and I split up a few years ago because he couldn't stay sober and wasn't reliable. We share 2 kids, my son Jake, 18, and my daughter Maddie, 14. I have Maddie majority of the time, and Jake just started college nearby, so he still lives with us most of the time if he isn't over at a friend's place. Jake's had a rough road. He struggled with addiction in high school and overdosed 2 years ago. It was terrifying. Maddie was the one who found him. She was only 12 at the time and it really messed her up. She barely slept for months after, had nightmares, didn't want to leave his side. I got her into therapy for a bit, but she stopped wanting to go after a while. Jake's been sober almost 2 years now and doing well in school, but I've noticed this pattern where Maddie seems like she's his emotional lifeline and he leans into it. It's been a slow build, but these are some of the things that have made me uncomfortable. They are very physical with each other. He hugs her constantly, usually from behind, or pulls her into his lap if they're watching TV. She lets him brush her hair, which she never lets me do. They spend hours in his room with the door half open. I heard them arguing one night, and when I went to check, Maddie's eyes were red like she'd been crying and her shirt was on backwards. She said they watched something sad, but it didn't add up, and she refused to talk to me about it anymore after that. Jake is overprotective to the point of being controlling. He always wants to know where Maddie is, who she's with, and what she's wearing. He freaked out over a photo she posted online because she looked too grown. When she goes out with friends, he'll text her over and over until she replies. Once he even called me to make sure she was really with them because I had to drive her to their house. When he has a bad day, she cancels her own plans just to sit with him for hours. I've seen her sitting in the hallway waiting for him to come out of the bathroom when he's upset. She's been wearing his clothes constantly, says his stuff makes her feel safe. When he stayed overnight at a friend's, she couldn't sleep and just laid in his room the whole night. She defends him over everything, even when he's being rude or short with me. Once I asked Jake to do the dishes and Maddie jumped in saying he's tired, I'll do them for him. When I finally confronted them, Jake told me I was making something innocent weird, and Maddie cried that I was just trying to ruin their relationship. I felt completely crazy afterward, like I was the one creating problems out of thin air. Eventually, I decided Jake needed to stay with his grandma for a while, his dad's mom. It's close to his college anyway, so it made sense. I told him it was just for space, for both of them, and I wasn't trying to cut him off completely or anything like that, but my ex lost his mind over it, saying I'm punishing Jake for being a caring brother. His mom called me cruel for splitting them up, but didn't try to send Jake back. At first, Maddie seemed relieved. She was laughing again, spending time with her friends. But now she's moping, won't talk to me, barely eats dinner. Jake's ignoring my messages completely. I don't think anything actually happened between them, but the way they've been acting isn't healthy. I just wanted to give them some space to breathe. Ayo for separating them for a while. How my stepmother changed after my mum passed away. When my mum died, I thought my stepmother and I would support each other through the grief. At first, she seemed kind, cooked dinner, asked how I was holding up, and told me we'd get through it together. But slowly, that changed. She started snapping at me for small things, leaving dishes, coming home late, even mentioning my mum's name. She'd say things like, "You're not the only one who lost someone," as if my sadness was a burden. I began feeling like a guest in my own home. Her kids had everything they needed. I was expected to be independent. She stopped talking to me unless it was to criticize something. One night, I overheard her telling a friend she never wanted to raise another woman's child. That broke me more than I can explain. I confronted her calmly. I told her I wasn't trying to replace anyone. I just wanted respect. She didn't say sorry, but since then, she's at least stopped the comments. It's not perfect, but I'm learning to focus on healing for myself. Losing my mum hurt, but losing kindness in the house she left behind hurt even more. Breakup story with an angelical woman. 24M. I met a woman, 29, in February, and I completely fell in love with her personality and her beauty, She always wanted a relationship. But I didn't see myself with her. Because of her special angelic personality, I'm not as good and as sweet as her. I never cheated on her. But I wanted to try it because she was perfect for me and I was falling in love as a couple. And it was very nice. But there came a point, which I thought could come, when I stopped seeing her as my future wife, if not as a friend, a type of life partner. I was never jealous of her in my life. She sometimes did things to give them to me, but nothing. And it frustrated her a lot. She always talked to me about marriage and I told her that marriage seemed very superficial to me. But I didn't want her as my wife and I couldn't tell her. I wanted to love her with all my heart, in an honest and different way. We are Christians, so we were waiting for marriage in theory. At the beginning we did do sexual things. I did desire her sexually. It was her first experience and I'm glad that I did it with all my love and that she was always respected. And in the end we gradually stopped doing it, by decision of both of us. I thought I could see her as my partner and we would get married. She was always very in love with me, and we became happy. It has been the most beautiful thing I have ever experienced. I already saw her attitude as a couple. I don't want to explain it because it is very subjective. That we were not going to be able to be together as a married couple and I didn't like that very much anymore. We talked about it. And I didn't get to the point of loving her as a couple and I suggested leaving it. She begged me to come back and told me that it was for God and so on. Then she left me with her a week later. At first I felt like I was going to die. I felt like I was short of breath. And I spoke to him and ended up begging him. Because I needed to be with her, listen to her, enjoy her, be able to see her, make her smile. Then I realized that I had ended up deceiving myself. And I was buying into the role of boyfriend. She felt very hurt when I begged her and she hurt me a lot. In the end we ended up seeing each other again to say goodbye. We spent some time together. We kissed for the last time. Then we talked on WhatsApp and she asked me to stop talking because she was very in love. The last thing we talked about was how much we had loved each other and said all the nice things to each other. I finished it and we said goodbye. And I confessed it to him, and he thanked me for telling me and that he forgave me from the bottom of his heart. And that's it. But I feel horrible. I feel like I have hurt her or that it could be a trauma for her. She is so much in love with me right now. It's the best thing that has happened to me in my life. I love her so much that I let her go quietly. She taught me to love a person just the way they are. I am getting much closer to my beliefs. It changed my life. And she tells me how happy I have made her and how much she has loved me. And how much fun we had. I just want her to have the best in her life. And I don't want to make her feel bad anymore. Am I making a movie? I feel that it was like that. I'm really confused, honestly I'm feeling really bad. I need some comfort please. Tildra, 24-year-old, fell deeply in love with a 29-year-old woman, but realized he couldn't see her as his future wife. They shared a loving, respectful relationship and even had intimate moments, but eventually decided to break up. She was heartbroken, and he feels guilty for hurting her. Despite the pain, he treasures their time together and sincerely wishes her happiness. My grandfather saved me after his death. Hello everyone. I'm posting here with sincerity. What I'm about to share was very real for me. I'm not trying to convince anyone or prove anything. Only to tell a personal experience that I truly lived, and that I hope might bring a little hope to someone who needs it. For several years, I suffered from intense anxiety, deep fears, and a kind of inner pain that was hard to describe. My grandfather, with whom I had a very strong bond, developed dementia at the end of 2018. I stayed by his side until his death in 2022. We shared deeply tender moments, and after his passing, I began having dreams in which he appeared very clearly. These dreams became recurrent, structured, as if he was trying to pass something on to me. That's when I understood that he was trying to reveal a plan, a very great plan to save me. One day, while visiting his grave, I noticed a real dandelion had grown among the artificial flowers. In a dream that followed, he told me to blow on it as a symbol of my will to be freed. I did it. From that moment, everything started to accelerate. I began receiving concrete signs. For example, one day a note fell in front of me while I was walking on a mountain road in Italy, a place where I used to walk with my grandfather. It contained very specific expressions that only he used with me. It wasn't a coincidence. And it wasn't the only one. I also experienced several out-of-body experiences, during which I found myself in his garden. Everything was there as it used to be. The plants, the smells, the light, and him. I don't know how to explain it, but I truly met him there. It wasn't a dream. It was something else. Later, in a care home I visited, I met an elderly man. From the very first moment, he reminded me of my grandfather. His gestures, his gaze, the way he spoke. One day, I felt the urge to show him a picture of my grandfather. He looked at it and said, "I know him very well." From that point on, he began, day after day, to reveal things to me, to make predictions with very specific details, and all of them came true. But above all, he helped me understand that my grandfather had a plan to save me from my anxiety. I affectionately called this man the messenger. The plan was structured, with very precise stages. What I understood, as strange as it may seem, is that my grandfather sacrificed his mental health to save mine. His dementia wasn't a random illness, but the very sacrifice that would make my healing possible. Here are the major steps of this plan. November 8th, 1983, the date my grandfather accepted to sacrifice himself to save me, about 17 years before I was born. February 18th, 2019 to February 18th, 2024. 5 years of intense anxiety, a period I could not escape. February 18th, 2024. Beginning of the liberation phase. From this point, the inner refinement began. May 29th, 2024. Total liberation, an even more intense period. July 4th, 2024. Period of correspondence, a chain of strong signs and fulfilled predictions. August 31st, 2024. Final liberation. On that day, everything changed inside me. I can't explain how, but I felt a complete inner release. The anxiety that had been eating me alive lost all power. Since that moment, I've been at peace. More than a year has now passed since the day of final liberation, and I feel so free and happy. So in the end, maybe the most important thing isn't whether all of this was real in the strictest sense, because it was so real for me that it ended up saving me. I don't claim to understand all the mechanisms behind what I experienced, but I know it was very real for me, and I know I am no longer the same. If anyone reading this is going through a difficult time, I just want to say, everything can change, sometimes in completely unexpected ways. Don't lose hope. What we think is lost sometimes continues to work for us, quietly, in the unseen. I fell in love with my husband's side chick part-I drummer. Sunday passed in a blur of perfect normalcy. Church in the morning. Gosh, we are that perfect family, the envy of the congregation, always leading by example. Afterward, a short trip out of town to a serene resort along the Katengela-Namanga Road. Their specialty is lamb chops, grilled to perfection in foil with white onion rings and a mild chili flavor. The fries are always crispy, the sauce a secret, divine mixture. We didn't have wine, not with the kids, but the meal was intoxicating enough. For a few hours, I almost forgot the previous day. Almost. A sliver of doubt crept in. What if he knows I know and is just playing nice? But I brushed it away. This wasn't our first family outing, and it wouldn't be our last. This day felt special, though, a deliberate, tender bond before his trip. My heart still sinks when he travels. We've seen the world, but I dread the emptiness of the house without him. Was that about to change? I had no idea. We returned to the city at dusk. He personally put the kids to bed. Time was short. His flight to Taiwan, to negotiate with new suppliers, he said, was at 4 a.m. Needless to say, we didn't sleep a wink. A whole week apart demanded every last second together. By 1 a.m., he was gone. I didn't accompany him to the airport at that hour. I hurried back to bed, desperate for a few hours of sleep. The next morning, I rushed to beat traffic, exited the expressway at Museum Hill, joined Forest Road, and was at my Westlands office by 7:45 a.m. A half hour until my first meeting. Lucky me. The office was still quiet, just one or two early birds. But on a Monday, the buzz would soon begin. I finally checked my phone. The first thing I saw, M-Pesa notification. You have received 50,000 Kenyan shillings from Clay. My cheeks flushed with a genuine smile just as a male colleague approached. "Still thinking about last night?" he teased. "Why not?" I chuckled, rising to hug him. After the usual morning niceties, he went to his desk. I opened my WhatsApp. A few unread texts from my husband. The flight had taken off on schedule. "Talk later. Love you, Catherine." "I love you back," I replied, my spirits soaring even higher. I hate Mondays. The meetings are boring, and the client calls are endless. The only consolation is how quickly the day passes. Aside from Clay's update during his layover in Dubai, I was too busy for my mind to wander. But now, as I sat alone in bed waiting for sleep, the feeling returned, stronger, more insistent. I tried to tell myself it was just a fantasy, that it would pass. But the more I resisted, the more I was overwhelmed. Naturally, almost inevitably, I found myself gazing at the images saved on my phone. I couldn't look away. In my mind, I was already sketching pictures of her and me, just like in my dream. And with my husband away until next Monday, the stage is perfectly set. The question is no longer if I have the courage, but when I will act. My ex like it was 2017 non-fiction. I started taking Wellbutrin a few weeks ago. For anyone who doesn't know, it's an antidepressant that boosts dopamine and norepinephrine, which can make you feel more motivated, clear-headed, and emotionally open. I took my Wellbutrin, made an espresso, and figured I was about to have a quiet morning. Maybe clean up a little, throw something on TV, relax. Instead, I found an old message from my ex that I never saw from 2017. It was one of those real ones, honest, full of faith and emotion, the kind of thing that deserved a reply back then. For whatever reason, that espresso and dopamine combo had me ready to face it. Next thing I know, I'm sitting there writing paragraphs like I'm writing a love letter on closure. I apologized, reflected, and even congratulated her on becoming the nurse she always wanted to be. No alcohol, no drugs, just me, my coffee, and emotional clarity I did not ask for. Meanwhile, I'm belting out Bruno Mars, Boys II Men, and Teddy Swim songs. I'm out here healing to harmonies. I actually sent it and she replied. Said she had been thinking about me too. Now it's Saturday night, I'm in my feelings, and I'm sitting here wondering if this is what healing looks like. Either way, Wellbutrin and espresso make a dangerous duo. Daughter's strange behavior made us question experience. Okay, this happened a few years back when my daughter was around one. Me and my ex were living in an old country house that she had inherited from her grandmother. It's a part of Europe where witchcraft is still considered to be common, and my ex used to visit a traditional white witch to make sure the evil eye was routinely removed. The house itself was an old villa where both her elderly grandmother and her brother, who died of illness in his teens, had died in their beds within the previous 5 years. And my ex used to be low-key anxious about bad energy being in TGE house. I found that funny and teased her for it. As a rationalist, I never paid it much heed. Till my daughter was born. I didn't want my daughter to be baptized, for ethical reasons. But as she approached her first birthday, she would start pointing to things in the house where my ex and I could see nothing. Sometimes I got a shivery feeling when around her at night, like there was something in the corner of the ceiling. And finally, when my parents were visiting around her first birthday, and they would ask her typical questions like, "Where's Daddy? Where's Grandpa?" etc. Well, when they asked her, "Where's Mama?" my daughter started pointing towards the bookshelf, to an old photo of my ex's grandmother. We thought that was weird enough. But after a few days of that, when she was asked again, suddenly my 1-year-old daughter pointed to the old photo and shouted, "Mama," in an extremely deep, rough, raspy voice. It freaked the hell out of all of us. She kept doing it, every time we asked where was Mama. My ex was so freaked out, she asked her usual white witch to come and remove the evil eye ASAP, and she arrived the next day and did some wards on our daughter. The parish priest came the day after, and did a blessing all around the house. My ex then organised a super fast baptism ceremony for the next weekend, whether I wanted it or not. After that, my daughter went back to normal. The pointing into space, the pointing at the old photo, the deep-voiced mama and the general shivery feelings all went away. I never used to believe in things like this, but after this experience I know there are things we can't always explain through reason and science alone. My dear Lamina, do you remember when we first met? I thought you were the most beautiful woman I had ever laid eyes on. The way you smiled at me when I entered your little B&B lit up my heart in a way I never thought possible. Our conversations made me feel as if we had met a lifetime ago. Your looks were comparable to a goddess, one in a tiny town off the main roads. I know our relationship was rather unusual. A short dating phase, following an engagement that has lasted years. I'm glad you let me help around the business. I'm honored you let me handle the finances, and I am so grateful for the time we have spent together. My life with you has been so blessed with joy. Scott and Lamina, the couple who run the Applewood Bed and Breakfast, always so willing to help those in need, to give them a warm bed and a hot breakfast. Our responsibilities were numerous, but I was happy to do tedious chores with you. You made me feel like I had always been a part of the village, that I had always been at the reception desk, handling new customers. Like I had always taken the post in, wandering past the flowers on the way back inside. I had almost forgotten that I wasn't always here, that at some point I wasn't attending town hall meetings, cooking breakfast with fresh fruit and ending the day with you, on our sofa, with a hot cup of tea. But recently, I have been reminded of my past. I've never told you about it. You asked a few times, but I purposely brushed you off. Now feels like a good time to let you know. I am married to a woman called Catherine. The whole reason I met you is because I wanted to have a quick fling, a refreshing new love before returning to Catherine. But you and I fit together so well that I never returned. So I couldn't marry you. Catherine probably thinks I'm dead, after disappearing for over a decade. Now she is dying, and I'm her next of kin. Millions, Lamina, millions are waiting for me. A large mansion, a penthouse, my weight in gold. Not to mention a bank account with numbers some can only dream of. But the only problem is that I cannot let anyone know about my new life with you in order to obtain the money. I must erase it. So I hope you understand the reason why you now smell smoke. I have locked the door. You cannot escape. All records of my existence here were the kindling to the fire now engulfing the B&B. I will remember you always, my dear Lamina. And I'm sorry you never got the happily ever after you wished for. But I will get mine.